In all the horror movies, a girl alone in an old abandoned house usually does the stupidest thing possible. She goes exploring. Stupid or not, I couldn't just sit here, waiting for something to happen to me. What if someone else was really in the house? I had to take control of the situation. So I picked up the large flashlight and held it firmly in my hand. It was going to be my weapon if I needed to defend myself. Armed with feigned courage, I walked over to the staircase. I stared up at the second floor and saw nothing out of the ordinary. I was wondering whether I really needed to go up there when I heard a scraping sound coming from somewhere upstairs. That settled it. I had to investigate. As I began to climb the stairs, the soft noise grew into a fluttering racket. A sense of dread flooded my resolve again. I didn't want to deal with any animals, let alone a person. But the commotion became incessant. It sounded more like a bird trying to find its way out rather than a person shuffling around. So it gave me the courage I needed to proceed onward. I convinced myself that I simply needed to go open a window to let the poor thing out. I climbed the carpeted stairs as quietly as I could. Once I reached the top of the landing, I saw a hallway with doors on either side of the corridor. An old reddish patterned rug ran the whole length of the floor, with faded tan-striped wallpaper covering the walls. Although I had convinced myself that it was just a trapped bird, that assurance alone did nothing to reduce my anxiety. My ears throbbed with every beat of my heart. No matter how much I tried to calm my fears, my head warned of imminent danger. I crept up to the first doorway on the left and peeked around the doorframe to look inside. Although the room faced directly towards the afternoon sun, it was semi-dark inside. The space was jam-packed with old wooden crates and boxes in stacks that nearly touched the ceiling. The next room housed a worn wooden headboard that was leaning against a faded wall. There were haphazardly positioned dressers with missing drawers and a dressing table with a tarnished oval mirror on top. Every object in the room was covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. Clearly, no one had used this room in years. I moved across the hall to look inside another room that faced the front of the house. Through the window was a picturesque view of the trees outside. This room had a masculine feel to it, with dark wood furniture and a sturdy writing table. A small stack of yellowed papers, an old inkwell, old-fashioned pens, and a few journals sat on top of the desk. The journals instantly piqued my curiosity. I stepped into the room and walked over to the desk. I wanted to see if they revealed any information about the original owner. The moment my fingers touched one of the journals, something dark flew out from behind the dresser and swooped over my head. I screamed and protected my head with my arms. It was a dark something with wings and flew around the room with amazing speed before exiting out to the hall. Great. I should have closed the door to keep the thing from escaping, but too late. My curiosity for the journals had made me temporarily forget the real reason why I had come upstairs in the first place. Now, whatever it was had flown out into some other part of the house, and I dreaded the thought of it reappearing in the middle of the night to pester Sam and myself. I went to close the door to keep it from coming back. I had a new objective in mind. I could not wait to discover what information the journals might contain. I stood back over the desk and saw that there were 3 beautifully bound leather journals. I reached for the top one and saw the initials WCT embossed on the front cover. As soon as I flipped open the thick cover, a loud bang shook the whole house. It was a deafeningly loud noise that made me jump out of my skin and drop the journal on the floor. I wasn't certain what had caused such a racket, but it sounded as if someone had detonated a small explosive nearby. I ran to the window to look down to the ground level, but there was no one there. Nothing seemed out of place. I decided that I had had enough of being upstairs. Since I discovered the cause of the fluttering noise and was comforted in the knowledge that it was not a person, I could safely go back downstairs. My findings should have made me feel more relaxed, but they didn't. The room suddenly grew very cold, as if someone had turned on the AC at full blast. All the hairs on my arms stood up, and my scalp felt tingly. Something was not right, but I didn't know what. The frigid air continued to fill the room, and I was drowning in the freezing, invisible mass. I dashed out into the hallway to get away from the cold. As soon as I had stepped out into the corridor, the doors to each room started closing by themselves with great force. It was as if someone was slamming them closed from the inside. I nearly tumbled down the stairs as I headed for the ground floor. I rushed to the front door and frantically turned the key to unlock it. But no matter which direction I turned the key, I couldn't unbolt the lock. I banged on the door out of frustration and yanked on the doorknob. The door and knob remained unfazed and unyielding. I noticed that the doorknob had grown noticeably warmer. I initially thought that it was due to the afternoon sunbaking on the front door. But when the knob grew so hot that it nearly scorched my palm, I knew something strange was happening. In horror, I watched the doorknob glowed red and begin to melt. My legs began to wobble and I felt a tightness in my chest. I sprinted to the back door. I had to find a way out of the house. When I grabbed the knob to open the door, it refused to turn. I snatched Sam's Swiss Army knife off the counter and began to work on the screws. It was impossible to steady my trembling fingers to try to get the knife tip into the screw head. When I was finally able to manage the task, the screws would only turn in their holes without coming loose. The back door, like the front, would not open. I was trapped. My breath became rapid, and my heart thumped harder in my chest. I began to hyperventilate. Out of desperation, I grabbed a nearby chair and hurled it against the kitchen window. The window cracked, but it didn't shatter. I picked up the chair once more and threw it at the window again. This time, the window shattered outward. I hoisted myself up onto the counter and was knocking out the rest of the glass from the window frame when I heard the key turn at the front door. Sam's back, I thought with relief. I clutched my chest, wheezing and puffing. I repeated to myself again and again that Sam was here and everything would be all right. I dragged myself down from the counter and stumbled toward the front door as it flew open with a thunderous bang. I came to a halt in the foyer when I saw two male figures standing at the entryway, and neither one of them was Sam.